I am Savannah. I'm the college and young adult pastor here at Capital, and I am so looking forward to walking through day 4 with you guys of our Emmanuel series. Our passage today is Exodus 3, verses 1 through 12. And this is a unique passage because it's not one you might typically include in an Advent series, but it has a very unique perspective on what it means to live a life close to God with that Emmanuel spirit. And it's the story of Moses and the burning bush. And it begins with Moses seeing this bush on fire, but not burning up. And instead of, approaching the bush with an urgency and a bucket of water, he literally moseys on over to the bush and says, I think I'm going to check this bush out, see what this burning bush is all about. Like, what is that? A sense of curiosity brings him to the bush. As he approaches this burning bush, God then speaks to him and says, remove your sandals because you're standing on holy ground. And after Moses removes his sandals, God then proceeds to tell Moses that he will be the one to lead the Israelites out of Egypt and away from oppression. And Moses' response to God is, who am I to lead the Israelites out of Egypt? Who am I, God, to do that? Because remember, Moses, while he grew up in the palace with Pharaoh and the royal status that came with that, he was born to a common family, working class, to an Israelite woman. And so in this moment, we see this shift from Moses being curious and approaching the bush with curiosity of spirit to engaging in a humble heart as he acknowledges his humble background. And this is a common theme throughout the Bible. God calling people who have a curious spirit and a humble heart, right? We see this all the time. Mary and Paul, Jesus, all three of those major figures in the Bible have two things in common. They had a curious spirit and a humble heart. Mary, when God tells Mary that she is going to be the mother of the Son of God, that she's going to be impregnated by the Holy Spirit, her response is not no. Her response is how. She doesn't object to God calling her to do this. She simply asks, how is that going to happen? She has a curious spirit. But Mary also has a humble heart because then she went on to carry the Son of God in her belly as an unmarried virgin. She had to endure the social aspects that came with that in her time. Mary also had to watch her son die on the cross for lives she would never meet. Mary had an exceptionally humble heart to do the task that she did. And then we have Paul, right? Paul had a very curious spirit. He was not afraid to have deep, difficult conversations, ask hard questions with churches all over. He's one of the most famous preachers of all time because his curiosity led him to those unique conversations. But Paul also had a humble heart. He was not afraid to sit in prison, have nowhere to eat and sleep. He was not afraid to face persecution. He had an extremely humble heart and a curious spirit. And finally, we have Jesus. Jesus probably had the most curious spirit of all. It actually takes Jesus 8 hours to get through the grocery store because he has to talk to literally everybody. Jesus spoke to everyone who came into his path. And that's what makes Jesus so approachable because he allowed everyone to approach him. He had a curiosity of spirit. He wanted to hear everyone's story and everyone's pain and be a part of their life. But Jesus also had a humble heart. He was not afraid to have a meal with and be associated with the marginalized, with people that it would not have been socially acceptable to socialize with. Jesus had an extremely curious spirit and humble heart. And so as we walk through this Advent series this month, I want to ask you, what does it look like for you to have a curious spirit and a humble heart? What does it look like for you to engage in a curious spirit that leads you outside of your comfort zone, outside of those preconceived notions about what you think you know about the world and the people in it? What does it look like to have a curious spirit? And then what does it look like for you to have a humble heart, to be aware, acutely aware of your weaknesses, but trusting God nonetheless with what he's called you to do?